just so everyone is aware, I am in Lobitos right now, so there might be connectivity issues at any moment. It's a bit random because we're in a remote rural place. It happens sometimes, so just let me know if at any moment you can no longer hear me or see me, and we'll just wait a second for the signal. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to this EcoSwell webinar. This time it's about our one of our main conservation projects, Piedritas Verde, in the small rural town of Piedritas, which is halfway between the district of Lobitos and the main city of Talara in the province of Talara, Piura, region of northern region of Peru. This is the first time that we are inviting more openly, more people. This is a space that is usually only for candidates that are part of our online volunteer program. And you know, candidates can join through applying through our website. And they can join our program, and we wanted to invite a bit more people here so that they can also see what this is about. So this project, as you can see, this is a multi-stakeholder project. It's been going on for 3 years now. And apart from EcoSwell and the community, we have Enel as one of the main sponsors of this project, corporate sponsor. This is a multinational energy company, and they have a very strong sense of corporate social responsibility because they have a power plant right next to the village of Piedritas, and they do a lot of work with the people of Piedritas. Another important partner is SOS Cortarrama Peruano. Oh, I have someone joining here. Welcome. As people join, I will have to let them in, and as I continue the presentation. SOS Cortarrama Peruano, it's headed by Jeremy Flanagan, an expert ornithologist of the dry forest of northern Peru, and of course of the Peruvian plant cutter. And we also have the provincial municipality of Talara itself, a very important stakeholder in this project. I will explain to you a bit more their involvement. And this project also has to do a lot with the UN's SDGs. Okay, I don't know if you are all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN has declared for the whole world, that everyone supposedly needs to be working towards achieving these Sustainable Development Goals. There are a lot, there are like 17 of them. This is just a few of them because, of course, sometimes the boundaries between the different SDGs can be a bit blurry. Sometimes they overlap, you know, there can be cross-cutting themes. So the main ones are, of course, here, life on land. This is a conservation project of a threatened ecosystem. And others, maybe still important, are also climate action, because we're conserving an important forest, which is important for, of course, climate change. There's also decent work and economic growth involved for this vulnerable community. Also quality education in terms of environmental education. There's also gender equality. We mainly focus with trying to work with women, with housewives, and empowering them. Also, infrastructure has been implemented, and this is also a way in which we can strive to have sustainable communities, you know, that can make the best use of their natural assets in a sustainable way to generate income without harming the ability of future generations to do the same, no? Actually preserving that. So for those of you who aren't familiar with EcoSwell, our reason to exist is because We believe that people and nature can, must, and will prosper together. There is actually really no other way, and this is getting more and more obvious in the world nowadays. And this is the reason why we wake up every day in the morning. This is our passion. This is what we want to realize through our work. This is our life's purpose. And to do this, of course, this is a huge issue. You know, it's global. The whole world is involved. The way in which we believe that we can do our share is by guiding vulnerable communities in the northern coast of Peru through the ways of sustainable development. And in doing so, we improve people's lives, people's quality of life, while at the same time both restoring, that means restoring degraded or damaged natural environments, and also preserving natural environments which maybe haven't been degraded yet or have been degraded to a lesser extent, and we want to preserve those as well. We have impacted more than 5,000 people since 2014 in Lobitos, the main town where we started our work, and since 2017 in Piedritas. And the way in which we approach development is through an integral approach. We have different areas or thematics, and these are also areas in which volunteers can apply and have their placement focus on any of these specific areas, like NGO management, renewable energy, health. You can see here in this picture examples of work by our previous volunteers when we had the in-person program. Of course, now, due to the current state of affairs in the world from the pandemic, this program is now fully online, but there are still a lot of things that our volunteers can do online to help these projects on the ground. No? There's also the area of WASH, which is water, sanitation, hygiene. That's a very important one. There's also research. Research, it can be on any of these areas. It can also be on something new that our volunteer interns can propose to do. It can be maybe their thesis for their university, for their undergraduate, for their masters. We've even had PhDs. And then there's also the one which this presentation focuses on, conservation and ecosystem restoration. So why is it important to rescue our forests? A bit of background information here. Yearly, more than 15 billion trees are lost globally. Okay, so let's just take a second to see if we can fully comprehend this figure. Okay, that's a 15 and then 9 zeros after that. Okay, that's the also known as the American billion. So I don't think, I mean, I try to imagine that number in my head. Of course, I don't know, I don't think it's possible, no? So the magnitude of the problem is really huge, no? It's so much, we can barely wrap our heads around it, no? And forests are home to more than 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity, okay? So a lot of the life, the biodiversity of the in the terrestrial part of the planet, a lot of that is found in the forests, okay? And we are losing them at a very alarming rate. And at the same time, the action of deforestation and forest degradation produces 11% of CO2 emissions worldwide. So we're not only destroying habitat, important habitat for life, at the same time, that is contributing, of course, to climate change. So if we don't preserve our forests, we're condemning not only our future, but the future of generations to come. The tropical dry forest, where we're working at, has been destroyed to up to 90% of its original extent. Okay, so anything that we have left now that we can see of this dry forest, of this ecosystem, is only 10% of what it was, of what it once was. Okay, so this is this, you can see a picture here. This is a view, a typical view of the Piedritas dry forest landscape, and you can see there's a patch of green, but you can also see pretty much desert around, no? So this is a characteristic of this type of habitat. It is a fragmented habitat. You don't have a continuous large area connected of forest. It's all just patches and fragments that follow the geography. Specifically, they follow the quebradas or the dry gullies. So this habitat is not only being reduced, it was already fragmented naturally, and those fragments are being reduced more and more. No? We also find in Piedritas extreme poverty, sadly. 2/3 belong to the socioeconomic level E of Peru. We've gathered this information from our monitoring and our surveys of the community. This is a similar situation also in Lobitos and in other parts of Talara, but Piedritas particularly is more vulnerable than the others because it doesn't really belong to a district. It's not really recognized by the provincial government, which is also a bit crazy because they've been living there now for some decades. But again, that is another barrier for their development. And in terms of climate change in the world, amazingly, again, Peru is leading as the second most vulnerable country to the effects of climate change. So we really need to start taking action in order to adapt and mitigate to climate change. So this is an example of the type of things that we can do, especially with vulnerable communities such as this. A bit more context here. On the top left, you can see the world map and the area of the tropics is shaded, and this red dot is more or less where we are located. And the northwest of Peru and the west coast of Ecuador, they form the tropical dry forest, or it's also known as the Tumbishan endemic bird area, according to BirdLife International, who categorize and they group areas in the world where you find a lot of endemisms of species, specifically of bird species that are only found in that restricted range area and nowhere else in the world. And where they found a lot of these restricted range species, they define that area as an endemic bird area. So the Tumbishan endemic bird area has 55 restricted range species, and that makes it the top third globally in terms of endemic species present here in this stretch of coast. Not all of the species are found, not all of those are found everywhere. Some are distributed only in certain places within this, this area. Some are found only in Peru, some are found only in Ecuador, some are found in both, okay? So it can vary. And also this, this whole area, or this tropical dry forest, the Tumbishan EBA, has been also considered, also declared top 3 in the world as for biodiversity, as a biodiversity hotspot. So a very important area where life accumulates in our planet, and it's forms of life that we don't find anywhere else, okay? Dry forests of Ecuador are considered critically threatened, sadly, and those of northwest Peru are considered threatened by the WWF. And here you can see where Piedritas and Talara are located, and we have a map that zooms into that area here on the right. So the big yellow polygon is the whole area that the community has or is trying to get officially declared in their name. And you can see the path that this quebrada or dry gully is making. It looks like a dry river going west into the ocean, and you can see the green patch right there as it approaches the ocean. So that's a part of where we find this habitat and this dry forest. And this is the part where we are working the ecotourism with the community. So the Peruvian dry forest is one of the most threatened habitats in the world. We've lost 90% of this unique biodiversity hotspot. This leaves endemic species such as the Peruvian plant cutter on the verge of going extinct. Here we see a picture of a family of plant cutters, the juvenile, the adult, and the female. And the people that live in this area, all the players that are present here, from companies to authorities, organizations, we all have a responsibility to avoid the complete destruction of this very special forest. No? And it's actually also an opportunity, because those that actually do that will be at the forefront of change, and they can also be at the forefront of ways of doing business that can be both beneficial not only for the environment and the ecology, but also economically. No? And here we have a close-up of the plant cutters. We have the female on the left and the male on the right. So this is like the flagship species that our conservation efforts are trying to save. This is the biodiversity that is unique to this place and that is endangered. Okay, only 500 to 1,000 of these individuals are estimated to be left alive in the wild. Okay, and as you can see, and maybe try also to develop some sort of emotional link, just like we have done with them, because as you can see, they are beautiful, no? And this merits conservation. No? And if it's not us, if it's not the people who are here, then who will actually do that, no? But not everything is dark and gloomy. There are some solutions. And as I was saying before, the United Nations has declared the Sustainable Development Goals to address issues like this, such as to combat deforestation and desertification, to take urgent action, to tackle climate change, and to empower women. So this is a project that mixes a bit of all those things. And how did this project started? What's the story of this? The first activity, the first intervention took place back in 2016, and we've been working every year since. Every year being a different stage of the project that we draw, design, and put together with Enel, because they are also the sponsors. They want to know before things take place what we actually want to do, and it has to get approved. There are all those administrative processes involved. So every year we propose new stages, and that's the way that we've been working so far. And at the beginning, it was more of the very first activity at the School of Piedritas. It was basically different entities that just shared this desire to improve the quality of life of the inhabitants of Piedritas, and at the same time save their forest. So it was basically friend entities coming together for a good purpose. Nothing to say, nothing very formal to start with, just a day activity at the school where we took out a hedgerow that you can see here on the left of an invasive species called tamarix or salt cedar. This is one of the issues here in the dry forest of Peru, the proliferation of invasive species such as these, and they have huge negative consequences for the ecosystem, especially because they are very salty. They accumulate a lot of salt, and they displace the native vegetation. Okay, this is exotic. This was introduced. It was a mistake. This comes from another continent, from another ecosystem, and this is a sort of issues and problems that arise due to the introduction of exotic species. So we took out this invasive salt cedar, and we planted the native palo negro that you can see here now on the right. This is how it looks now, and of course it has grown since. This was back in 2016, and now there's a nice hedgerow of native palo negro that can actually be beneficial for the community, no? But more than that, this very first activity, I always remember it fondly because it was the beginning of all of this. No? It was the beginning of all these different entities like Enel, EcoSwell, the School of Piedritas, the community, the children. We even had support from the local army unit. They have a base nearby in Lobitos. So it showed that all of these entities could come together and do something good, you know. So from there, we had, you know, the hopes of saying, okay, let's go for something bigger here, no. So the actual first stage, now in 2017, involved doing socioeconomic and environmental study, okay? And this is also the EcoSwell standard before doing any intervention. A more significant intervention in a community is just taking a step back and allowing the time to actually really get to know what is happening, ask the people, talk to them, talk to all the stakeholders involved, and really assess the situation, okay? And this is very important because this acts as a baseline for future work. And at the same time, we're able to get everyone involved. And it's not something that is just us that we're doing as outsiders from the community. So it helps a lot with the ownership of the local people. It helps also to obtain their vision of the future and what they would like, what they would want. And in that way, then we can frame the projects in that direction. And so we can make sure that they are projects that they actually want and that they will take ownership of. So we did a lot of focus groups, interviews, community gatherings for the socioeconomic part. And then, of course, we also did some field walks all over the area, recognizing the place, mapping any potential touristic attractions, which are the natural assets, and identifying the biodiversity, mostly in terms of bird life, vegetation, and the threats that this biodiversity was facing. So what were the main findings of this study? Well, basically that Piedritans are very friendly and receptive people, easy for us to work with. That's a huge advantage. And they are interested in working in a collective and organized way in order to be able to develop out of those lowest socioeconomic levels that they are in. They also have a united council for the community that is very well respected, a well-respected president. This council, they are committed to the role, and that's also very important to have. And we also found that the main problem was the lack of ownership titles to their land. As I was saying, they are still not formally recognized by authorities. So in paper, it's as if they don't exist, okay? And this is really the main problem, and a lot of other problems are a direct consequence of this. This is why they lack basic services, basic infrastructure. They cannot access jobs, or they cannot be as productive as they should be because of this issue, no? And that's also one of the reasons why many of these people sadly resort to logging the algarrobos, which are the dominant tree of the dry forest here, or the grandfather tree. They are also algarrobos in English. They are sometimes called mesquites or carob trees. Some of you may be familiar with them. And they cut them down in order to sell them as fuel wood or to convert them into charcoal using these ovens that you see here in the bottom right, basically holes in the ground where they lit up the logwood and turn it into charcoal through a slow burning process. No? And as you can see here, this is an oven right there, like in a part of the forest, and you actually have some trees around it, no? So it's simple to say that this is not good at all for this environment, no? It's basically consuming the forest, this economic practice, no? But sadly, it is what people have to resort to, no? They are aware that this is very harmful, that they told us, very honestly. And again, this is also part of the reason why we start doing these studies first, because we have to create that relationship, no, and that trust, and we have to build over that over the years, no. So they honestly told us that they don't want to keep doing this. They know that they are harming the environment, and they want to change, no. So that was also something that gave us hope to say, okay, this is a place where we can work and try to do some good things, no? And in terms of the environmental or ecological findings of the study, well, we find a patch of native forest habitat that was degraded to a certain extent, not very much, thankfully, so still salvageable. We also found a lot of natural lookout points of attractive landscapes, so hills that overlook the forest, that overlook the ocean, very, very attractive. These are the natural assets for an ecotourism venture. We also found migratory or shorebird wetlands right there where the quebrada gets to the sea. So we find a concentration there of water. It's a mixture maybe of groundwater, superficial running water, water from the tides that comes in from the sea. And this forms an ecosystem there. And it is also very important for life and for migratory birds that are making their voyage, their migratory trip all the way along the continental coast of the Pacific, all the way from North America to South America. And all of these birds, they rest on these coastal wetlands along their way. So it's important to also conserve places such as these, no? You can see a picture of the wetlands down here, no? And we found more than 120 different species of birds. This is already now, this is considering also both Piedritas and Lobitos. And 24 of those are of the restricted range, restricted to the Tumbishan EBA. So they are endemic either to Ecuador, Peru, or both, okay? Again, these are the assets that are necessary so that you can carry out an ecotourism venture, no? You have the biodiversity already there, no? That's one of the principles. Sadly, 4 of these endemic species, they are endemic only to Peru, so even more restricted, no? But at the same time, they are threatened. And these are the Peruvian plant cutter, which you already saw, also the rufous flycatcher, the one here in the top left, the Tumbes tyrant, the yellow one to the right. And there's also the red masked parakeet. And at least 5 species of migratory or aquatic birds that are also threatened, 4 species of plants, trees, at least, okay, 1 mammal, which is the Sechuran fox that you can see here on the bottom right, and 2 species of lizard. You can see here the Tumbishan tegu. All of those are also threatened. And we say at least because we constantly are registering more and more species, and there's definitely more biodiversity that is waiting there for us to register here, and that is also threatened. And it's basically all of them are threatened from the same problem, which is the loss of habitat, no? And this is the loss. These are the threats to the habitat. We have the invasive tamarix that I told you about. One of our previous volunteers, back when we did the in-person program, she did research and analyzing satellite imagery around this place, and she discovered that the green forest had grown in the past years more than 180%. And at first, initial thoughts were, oh, this is great, the forest is growing, this is amazing, basically we don't have to do anything, no? But taking a closer look, we found that that growth was attributed to the invasive tamarins. So the invasive tamarins almost doubles now the native forest. So it grows at alarming rates. Then we also have a plague that is affecting the algarrobos. So algarrobos not only are getting cut down, but there is also a plague. It's maybe caused by climate change, and it's drying up the algarrobos and it's killing them slowly. Some experts say that algarrobos are also on a path towards extinction because of this plague. And these trees are also cut down mainly because there is a demand for this logwood or this charcoal due to a famous dish in Peru, which is called grilled chicken or speed roasted chicken. Sadly, this dish has become the most popular dish, the most consumed dish in all the country. And sadly, it is driving the deforestation of the northern dry forest of Peru. Okay, and this is mainly happening in the cities along the coast, and consumers, people, they don't connect the problem. They don't realize that their consumption and their behavior is causing this, because they are in the city, they just don't know, they're far away, they're disconnected from the issue as a whole. But this is very important, and we have to keep raising awareness of this so that consumers can also be more conscious and start, of course, demanding products that don't harm the environment. No? And this is just huge. No? It's a huge market. So as long as there is demand for this, there will be demand for charcoal that comes from algarrobo. And why algarrobo? Because supposedly it gives the best aroma, like a smoking aroma to the chicken. Okay, so that is one of the main drivers of the destruction of the dry forest. So we've carried out a research study quantifying this destruction and degradation. This is also something that our volunteers participated in. This fieldwork took place at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year. Thankfully, we were able to finish before all the lockdowns and restrictions. And it has now been published very recently in the Peruvian Journal of Biology. You can look it up there if you Google it, as critical degradation of Peruvian plant cutter habitat in Lobitos. Here in this picture, you see our friend from SOS Cortarrama Peruano, Jeremy Flanagan. We're basically georeferencing every single piece of vegetation in the study plot in Lobitos, and taking measurements of their dimensions, and of course, if they were alive or dead, or if they were just a stump left from the logging. And sad to say, the results are really surprising. In a 10-hectare plot, we found 266 of these stumps. And you see Jeremy in the picture there measuring the girth of the stumps, and there are more stumps there marked with red. And as you can see, the whole landscape, it just looks gray, no? And a lot of just dead branches lying around everywhere. So that's the landscape that logging leaves behind. No? They just take the trunk and they leave all the branches there to just, dry, and they just leave them there, and you end up with that very sad landscape. And all of these stumps, they amount to 35 of all the recorded vegetation. So it was the most abundant kind of vegetation in the study plot. So that is what we mean also by degradation. Okay, it's not that the deforestation is clear cutting a whole area, of forest, it selectively targets specific species like the algarrobo trees. But when you cut down the algarrobo tree, because it's the grandfather of the forest, it is giving a lot of benefits to other plants and trees around it. So when you lose it, all those other plants and trees lose that as well. And that's degradation, okay? That's the effect that has on other species. And as a result, the other species begin to dry up and die as well. In another study plot, we found 79% of the recorded vegetation were algarrobo stumps. So basically, a whole forest that was devastated. No? So as we carried on into stage 2 in 2018, we started to implement things. No? So the first one was an environmental education campaign with the population. As you can see from these pictures here, this involved going house by house and taking native seedlings and planting them with the families there. Okay, and this is part of the awareness raising, and it's also a way in which the families can take an active role in the project, and all of them are doing something that adds up. Also workshops with the children at the school in Piedritas. We also put up the first touristic signs, or the first touristic sign that you can see here in the main lookout point. We also did workshops in the field, taking out the children to the field so that they can also learn there in a practical way. The house-by-house visits also involved sharing with the people in their houses the presentations, explaining to them these issues, telling them how they can be a part of a solution, spreading also educational material, handouts, printed. A lot of these people, you know, they don't have access to computers, to the internet, okay? So they are also not even visited. As I said before, the government doesn't recognize them yet. So no one like ever goes to visit them, no? And they say, when you knock on their doors, they're like, no one has ever come to my house before to like talk to me of these things. And again, this is something that builds the relationship over time, no? And the trust. So on that stage, we were able to involve 10 families actively, and then towards the next stage in 2019, we went up to 20 families, and also revisiting those initial 10 families, carrying out monitoring, checking up on the trees, how they were doing. Of course, a lot of these trees, we have to be honest, a lot of these trees are, they die, you know, and it's just this environment that is so dry and hot, and you know there is a high percentage of seedlings that simply they don't make it. And also, of course, there are issues when the family commits, but then doesn't really take care of the seedlings. So that is why it is important to constantly revisit them, to remind them about this. Then we also did more community gatherings, explaining to the community the vision of the project, getting their approval to carry this on in the community's land, and just doing more and more monitoring visits. We also started an initial study and pilot into wastewater treatment. Okay, sadly, there is a wastewater problem in Piedritas. It's not wastewater that is produced in Piedritas, it is wastewater that is produced in the city of Talara, very close by, but it is a big city, and they have a wastewater effluent, and sadly, this makes its way into Piedritas, and then it also goes through the dry forest. It even goes all the way to the wetlands. So it contaminates everything in its path because it's not completely treated wastewater. So we did an experiment to see if special plants such as vetiver, that you can see here down on the left, if they could grow in this wastewater, and through their action of growing, they can digest some of this contamination and clean the water. So this was just a first pilot, just to see if vetiver was able to thrive in the conditions of this wastewater. And we saw that, yes, as you can see here in the picture on the left, this was like the very first day that we put the plants there. And this was the next picture, approximately 4 months after that, the plants growing there beautifully. So this is a whole other project and story about wastewater and bioremediation that is going on. This is another side project, but it of course connects with what is happening in Piedritas, and of course it benefits the community and the ecotourism efforts. We also implemented basic infrastructure for the ecotourism to take place, such as this information center on the top right, where visitors to the community, they can come here to get registered, to pay an entrance fee, to get some basic information. And this is also something that our volunteers helped us a lot to build and to produce. And of course, we also hired a local labor through the project. Down here, you can see also the local labor or local builder, Justo Blas, who was also in charge of building the infrastructure along the trails, along the hiking trails, deep in the forest. You can see him here just finishing up building this resting spot along the trails. No? And we also did a lot of training of the people. We trained guides so that they could take the visitors into the forest. We also trained people into forming a local committee. So now Piedritas actually has a local tourism committee. So a lot of meetings and trainings. And we also had days where we went with the community to clean up certain parts of the forest that were maybe heavy with just trash that flows, that flies, and that gets trapped in the vegetation, or just massive amounts of dead vegetation that we cleared. And in this picture down here on the right, you can see we cleared an area there for a campsite, so that the trails could also have a campsite area for visitors. And this is the day when we opened. We did a grand opening of the trails. We got a massive turnout that day. We didn't expect it really, but we got more than 60 visitors just in the very first day. You can see them here lining up on the information center and just walking through the trails. And so that was huge. That was really historical. No? Nothing like this had happened before in Piedritas or even in Talara in terms of dry forest ecotourism. So this also gave us hope that there is potential here for something. And this is a trail. When you look at them in the map, on the right you have the main road that connects Talara from the south going north to Lobitos. And right there on the roadside you have the information center where you can stop, get registered, and enter into the community and into the forest to do your trails. You pass there through Marlies, which is she's one of the women entrepreneurs participating in the project. She's part of the committee, and she in her house right there, she offers basic food and services, and it's another way in which she gets empowered, and she's also benefiting economically from the project. No? And then as you walk into the forest, you can either choose to go right, we call it the forest trail, or you can go left into the lookout trail, which climbs a hill and goes around. Both trails then meet up near the campsite place, and then you can also just walk back through the main dirt road, or just take the other trail back. So you can customize your trip any way you want when you visit here. No? And along the way, it's all signalized. There are resting spots. There are some signs, and it's important to have these signs there, not only for the visitors, but also they are signs for the local people, so that the local people know, okay, this is the area that we are preserving for the visitors, and they also get to know more about their local biodiversity. So these are the amazing people that we have in our tourism committee in Piedritas that we have been working with and training. You have Marlene Guerrero that I was telling you about, or Marley. She's both the secretary of the committee. She's also the treasurer. You know, all the people that come in and pay the fee to walk into the trails. And she also owns a very important food and drink place there to offer these visitors. Justo Blas, on the left here, he's in charge of all the constructions, of the signaling of the trails, and also monitoring the vetiver, as you can see here. Martin Silva, he was a guide that was trained, and we actually sent him to another conservation area with the budget of the project, and he stayed in this other place for a whole week, learning from other guides in a similar dry forest area, in the very first private conservation area of Peru, in Chaparrí. So he learned there from very experienced people that have been doing this for years, and then he came back to Piedritas in order to share his knowledge and to be able to offer his guiding services to the visitors. And then we also have Teófilo Erazo, who is the president of the community, and he's also a member of the tourism committee. You see him here with the white hat. Again, he's very respected in the community, so it's important, of course, to have him on board and to agree and share his opinions, to agree with the intended course of action. And then he is the one that takes those things to the community in the assembly, and the community gets to vote, and they all agree if they want to do it or not. So up to 2019, to the very end of the year, we finished implementing all of this basic infrastructure for ecotourism, building all the local capacity, training the people, spreading the awareness of this project, and that was the end of stage 3. So we also finished with doing a survey just to see again how things had been changing from our initial study, what people were the perceptions of the people, and this is something that we constantly need to be doing. So by 2019, 56% of Piedritans say that they feel involved or very involved in these ecotouristic initiatives. 83% agree or totally agree that EcoSwell initiatives have increased participation of women. 75% have a good or very good opinion about Enel as a corporate sponsor, mainly due to the Santa Elena school, because Enel is also responsible for having built this school, and constantly they do improvements in the school, but also due to the Piedritas Verde project, okay? So again, this is a way in which business can be in the forefront of change, and it actually improves their image and their reputation, so it's good for their business. 90% agree or totally agree that their community benefits from these initiatives. 56% say there is less logging today than 5 years ago, which is of course important and is one of the objectives of the project. But we have to be honest that we haven't been able to completely stop all logging activities. Of course, that's what we want to achieve someday. But this is good progress, no? Considering only a short time the project has been running. 68% consider the risk of extinction of endangered species as the worst impact of logging in the forest of Piedritas. 24% admit that they still depend to a certain extent on the sale of charcoal. Okay, so for 24% to admit this is again important, because they could as well just say otherwise, no, and just lie to us on the surveys. But it is important to realize that they are being honest and they are admitting this. There might be others that are not, but this number tells us, okay, at least 24%, we still know that they are still depending on charcoal. So the project needs to step up to be able to provide an alternative, an economic alternative to these people so that they can stop that activity, 48% consider methods based on plants, such as the vetiver bioremediation, the best way to clean the wastewater in Piedritas. 75% believe that the landscape has improved due to the planting of trees, the families adopting the native seedlings. 51 out of 87 trees that were originally planted are still alive. So this is what I was telling you about the mortality rates. But again, this is something good and something positive that the project is achieving. And there is a strong interest in the project by the municipality of Talara. Okay, they even employed 5 people from Piedritas, mainly women, in public cleaning services to keep the trails clean, because there is a huge solid waste problem all over Talara. This is something that is quite common all over Peru, in provinces and rural areas. You just have places that are dumps of solid waste, and then the wind just comes and blows it everywhere. So we need to keep the trails clean because we're receiving people, no? And these visitors, you don't want to take visitors to a place that is full of trash, of course. And this is a way in which the project has generated jobs. And it has also positioned Piedritas famously locally as a place in Talara to go and see the plant cutter and know more about the plant cutter and get to meet the plant cutter close. And that is very important also for the future. So far in up to early March 2020, before the whole COVID crisis blew up, we had received more than 250 visitors in these hiking trails without active promotion. Okay, this was only just word of mouth. The active promotion was actually what we were planning to do in the new stage, which hasn't happened because of the pandemic, no? But we have what happened right up to that point, and it was already generating a sustainable local economy, no? That was thriving from conservation. Instead of cutting down the trees, preserving them so that you can have something that can generate an income constantly, no? So this has all halted now, sadly, just when we were going into a new stage of active promotion and doing more capacity building. But we have to see how things now, or what the new normality will be for this project, no? But in the meantime, these are some of the main barriers before the COVID crisis, okay? So of course the COVID crisis is another huge barrier, but these were the ones that were already existing before, and they were both internal and external. So internal, we have the lack of land titles, which is the main one, as I explained to you before. This is a typical house in Piedritas, as you can see, like a barren desert, in the middle of nowhere, no roads, no access, and just a very basic square made up of basic materials, no? So as long as these people don't have a title to their land, there is very little that they can do, no? Another main barrier is a lack of jobs. We need to create more jobs for these people. The solid waste problem is huge, as I already told you. The wastewater problem is also huge. And these are problems that are not caused. They are not caused by the community. They are caused by the city of Talara nearby, no? And the city of Talara is having this collateral effect on this community, no? More empowerment is needed, more local capacity, more trainings, more active participation of the community in order to take ownership of a project and to lead it into the future. This is ongoing, but it is important because we cannot always be there. And in fact, we want to, at some point, leave, and leave the community to be able to handle things by themselves. And of course, it is a small community, and it's people. They're all humans, and humans also tend to have arguments and disputes between themselves. And this is also something that sometimes happens here, and it is also part of the nature of the work. And we have to be able to deal with that, to consider that there are different views, and we can try to reach a consensus. Externally, the main one, unfortunately, are politicians and authorities, and this is just a huge barrier, mainly because of corruption. And this is a huge problem in all of Peru, sadly, and it is a huge barrier to development. We've had a lot of corruption cases lately around Talara and Lobitos from the main political authorities. There is also, sadly, a lack of political will to carry out initiatives like this, mainly because the people in charge just don't know, or they don't have the capacities to do something like this. We also find a lot of a lack of policies or programs or focalized incentives towards projects like this. And sadly, there is also a lack of control and enforcement, for example, of the illegal logging, because logging algarrobos is illegal in Peru. It has been declared against the law for several years now. However, there is little to no enforcement of that law, so the logging keeps on happening. And another external barrier is the lack of financial funding and sponsorship after stage 3, which ended in 2019. Again, this is because of coronavirus. Our main sponsor had to halt their continued investment in this project. And this is huge because the project has to also be sustainable financially, okay? Sustainability, it has to be in every sense and in every aspect. So if we're lacking this funding, it's very hard to be able to continue with the project, So what does the future hold for this project, given all of these circumstances? What we would like, what we want to achieve, our plan, is to scale up the wastewater biotreatment and its productive benefits to the community. We want to keep strengthening the tourism community. We really have to carry out a massive promotion campaign to spread this new touristic destination and solidify the touristic product and the business model with the community. This is something that we're very eager to do, and again, it's a bit of a frustration that the pandemic just happened. Of course, it's like that with pretty much everything. We would like to open more kilometers of trails. We have just opened around 3 kilometers, and there's a lot more than we can do. Of course, we're trading the ground, seeing before activating more of these, but we can activate trails that go to the wetlands, to archaeological sites nearby, to more extensive expanses of beach. We want to implement more infrastructure like a canopy tower in the forest or a bird hide, better lodging so that visitors can spend the night, maybe a market for local products or even a research station, and just in general create that whole local economy and ecosystem. And we want to become Enel's star CSR project for Peru and even possibly the world. The thing is, Enel sponsors a lot of projects everywhere around the globe, so that's a huge competition, but it's good to have that competition to keep driving us forward. And there is a potential to replicate this in other quebradas or dry gullies very nearby between Talara and Lobitos that you can see here in this map. We have more of these quebradas and more vulnerable communities and more interesting patches of dry forest habitat where these communities are located. So it's a very similar setting. And if we can build a model here that is successful, we can very easily replicate it in these other quebradas. It will be much more easier than starting, of course, from scratch. And we will be creating a corridor or a route of both for tourism and for biodiversity. And what we want to do in these quebradas is ecosystem restoration. Okay, it's not just about doing reforestation and just planting trees in the ground just for the sake of it. Of course, that is important, but ecosystem restoration implies many more things than just planting trees. It requires a whole landscape approach, no? And we want to achieve this through groundwater activation, because this is a very arid place. It's hyper arid. We're in the tropics. It's a desert, so very dry conditions, but the water is actually right there underneath our feet. So there is a huge potential to actually tap into this groundwater and to use it for ecosystem restoration. That, again, that is a whole project in itself that we're promoting at EcoSwell, and we're hoping to have some new developments in that soon. But we do believe that it is possible. We know that something similar has happened elsewhere in the world in similar settings, and this would be a way in which we can get more local income generated for the people and get these areas actually officially declared for conservation and ecotourism. And in that way, we achieve the vision that I was telling you in the beginning. And then this could be scaled up to the whole province, to the whole region of Piura, as a high-impact sustainable development model for vulnerable communities in degraded landscapes. And of course, the potential is there, no? It's just a matter of getting everyone together and doing it, really. It's more about connecting the dots sometimes. So we're coming to an end now. Before finishing up, here's my contact information. If anyone wants to reach out, our website is right there. If you're interested in our online volunteer program, you can just go into our website and you can apply there. You can read more on the program. All the information is there. Of course, we have other types of projects, not only conservation and ecosystem restoration, as I was telling you at the beginning. We also have renewable energy, water, health, and there are a lot of tasks that our online volunteers can help us with. It's not the same as it was before when we had the in-person program, but other tasks now include, of course, things like designing new solutions, processing data, analyzing data, doing mapping from satellite imagery for the different projects, helping us also to create more audiovisual content, videos, pictures that can help with the promotion for social media as well. Just in general, any digital innovation that can help our projects. And there is really a lot of work that can be done, even remotely, in an online way. So if you're interested, please go into our website, ecoswell.org. If you're more interested in this specific project, or you want to check out more of this amazing biodiversity, we also have a YouTube channel, and we've been uploading a virtual tour there where you can take a closer look. You can also follow us, of course, on Instagram, Facebook. The project has its own Facebook, facebook.com/Piedritas And before finishing, I also wanted to walk you a bit in a very short way, in a sort of a virtual tour. So this is the kind of scenery that you will find nowadays in Piedritas, with the signs up there as you walk through the trails and with information there. And of course, very important for bird watching and to draw people or bird watchers from around the world that are interested in these endemic species that they cannot find anywhere else. No? This is an example of a kind of reptile, or the iguana. Here we have the scarlet-backed woodpecker. This is another endemic to the Holton-Bishan area. Here we have the Peruvian coastal miner, another endemic only to Peru. A nice wallpaper of the Centurion fox. This one is near threatened. This interesting fox actually coexisted back in the Pleistocene with megafauna, such as the saber-toothed tiger and other megafauna from in ancient times around this place. And it managed to evolve and keep adapting to times, but sadly it is considered threatened now. And we have here another endemic to Peru, the Cinereus finch, the adult and the juvenile. So again, this is a taste of things that can be done now that we're focusing more on digital innovations. We can do, with the help of volunteers, virtual tours or virtual catalogs, and using these resources. And in that way, we can spread more awareness and help save this biodiversity. So, of course, if anyone has any questions, we can do a round of questions now, and I will stop presenting for now so that we can see each other. And if anyone has a question, you can just unmute yourselves. We're a few people here, and ask away.
Hi, Diego. Thanks for the presentation. Really great. I hear a lot about like how the government like doesn't recognize the people of Piedritas. So, what about the land itself? Like, because I know like the dry forest, you said that now it's only 10%. What about, is that a protected land, recognized as a protected land, or is that's not something being done by the Minister of Health or the government itself?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very important. It is not considered as a conservation area officially right now, but that is also something where the municipality of Talara plays a very important role, and we're on the way with them to create in the file for the conservation area so that the municipality can elevate that and take it to the pertinent authorities and actually get some sort of official declaration in paper signed. And that will make also all the work much more easier. And I believe it is achievable, but it hasn't happened yet. Bureaucratic, administrative processes are involved, but it will be very important to achieve that. And it's basically the area that we want to conserve. It's, of course, it's bigger than the ecotourism trails here, because we also need to have what is called a buffer zone. So you not only protect the important place that you want, but you also protect its surroundings as a buffer. And basically, it would be this whole, it's like a delta that the Quebrada Pariñas, this dry gully, generates when it reaches the sea. It spreads out like a river reaching the sea in a delta kind of way. And that whole area we would like to get declared. And it overlaps, of course, with the area that the community wants to get official recognition for. So it would be like a two-way benefit for the community to get that recognition, and at the same time get that area declared for conservation, so that the community can be recognized that they are living there, they are doing an economic activity, and at the same time they are helping to preserve the place. No?
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any
Diego,
other? Yeah?
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been leading this initiative now for some time, and you've mentioned huge obstacles. No, what would you say, in your opinion, is the biggest obstacle in ensuring the protection of the equatorial dry forest in Piedritas?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, there are a lot of different obstacles, but probably there is a main one that all the others, or most of the others, stem out from that one, no? Which is the lack of land ownership or land titles. Because that really sets the basis for human development. If you don't have the rights to the land where you're living, no, it just makes everything more complicated, no. So I would say that is the main one, and I would couple that one with the political barriers. And of course, it is also in a way a consequence of a political issue that they don't have their land rights, no? And but the political barrier is a bit more complicated than that. We need to also educate our authorities, no? If they just don't know about the problem, about the issue, if they don't have proper environmental awareness or proper education about the ecosystem where we are located, where they are located, it is hard to do anything in that sense, no? So it mainly boils down to a to a political barrier, which can have a bit of complexity in order to address. But I don't think it is impossible. It can be achieved. It's just a matter of spreading more and more awareness, getting everyone involved, carrying out participatory processes, and in every step, making sure everyone is aligned with the vision, and we're all striving for the same goal.
Thank you. So the Geoscientists Without Borders project that we're applying to with Lancaster University and the University of Piura, it has the potential to impact on that front, on that awareness raising that you're mentioning with the authorities, right?
Yes, totally. The idea behind that project is, of course, to strengthen these networks locally, no? And these networks involve authorities, they involve private companies, such as the big oil companies that are present around the area. They involve the grassroots organizations from the communities. And it's just basically keep strengthening those networks, making them come together through more workshops and more involvement, more engaging activities, so that everyone is aware of the problem is socialized, and everyone can come up with a unified and holistic plan, no? And this bid for Geoscientists Without Borders is a first step in that direction towards activating the use of the groundwater resource that can have a massive effect in speeding up the ecological restoration here. So we're just eager for that one. Of course, it's not secure yet, but if everything goes well, it will be a very nice project. And we're also, our main partners there are academic partners from Lancaster University in the UK, and also from the University of Piura, local university in the region, to actually put to use very important geophysical tools, so a lot of science there involved, but putting that to use into practical solutions for restoring these degraded habitats. So if everything goes well, we will be training local authorities for use of this groundwater towards this goal. So very interesting times indeed, even though everything that is going on, there's still things that can be achieved, and we just need to not lose focus of our our plan and where we want this to go, no? Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Just feel free. This is the moment.
Hi, Diego. This is Corey. I'm a little late, but I was able to get the gist of what you were explaining, and I'm really excited about this. This is a great. I also can recognize your frustration with everything that's been going on and having to maybe go back and rethink the plan a little bit. My question, you had mentioned the political barrier being the largest barrier or the greatest barrier that you have at the moment. How accessible are the local leaders, especially during this time now, or what can we do in the interim until things kind of get back online? So that's two questions.
Yeah, well, it can vary, no? It can vary from person to person, really, how accessible they are. We find people that are very accessible, and sometimes we find people that it's very hard to get a hold of them. Sometimes they just don't reply to anything, letters, calls, messages. And of course, before we could just go and chase them physically, no? Where they were at, we would know their working hours, and we could just knock on doors, or just sometimes even barge into their offices, sometimes a bit catching them unaware, and achieving those little agreements, no? Getting them to accept a letter, taking the next step forward, elevating those requirements higher up the ladder. And that's what we were used to do before, and we were able to build networks even in that way. Now, of course, it's all a bit more complicated. We were lucky that we were able to achieve what we achieved before, and use those existing contacts. Maybe it's a bit harder to make new contacts, but we've been able to do that as well. And it's just patience also. We require a lot of patience, because we have to understand that things are not all the time the way that they're supposed to be, or that they should be ideally. But we have to be very patient and not lose, not get too frustrated along the way. And just by doing those small things, over time, those things, of course, accumulate, and you do get pretty amazing results. No, we're very happy. A great result was when the municipality of Talara actually started to more actively try to participate in the project. No, and it wasn't no longer us chasing them; it became a bit them chasing us. When they saw the project a bit more flashy and getting more attention, and in a way they wanted to hop on that movement, and it's good when you start seeing those effects. No? Corey, if I could ask you, I don't know who invited you, or are you friends with someone who was in our program before?
I was recently introduced to your program. Last week I talked with Michael and Alejandro about coming on as an intern. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Oh, so you have applied?
Yes, I have.
Okay, that's great. Awesome.
Yes.
Well, I hope things work out for that. I don't know if I answered your question, or you have another part to your question.
No, you actually answered my question, and then you took it even a step further. As you said, if you're not able to chase them down, if they're distracted by other things right now, which a lot of political leaders across the spectrum are, right, at various levels of government are, I think what you had said it best is creating excitement around the program itself and bring them to you. I think that's excellent. I love hearing that. So no, thank you very much. And great presentation again. Thank you.
No, thank you. Don't worry. Yeah. And I think we're also seeing that this whole crisis, maybe in a way, it's like running its course. and we might be back to some sort of normality, maybe sooner than later. So we have to make the most of this moment in any way possible to prepare for that time as well.
Agreed. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, pretty good turnout for our conservation webinar. It's been going on for almost an hour and a half. So I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything, or we can just wrap it up.
I just want to thank you again, Diego, for your time and for such a great presentation. It's really inspiring to see how we've progressed, and I'm very excited about the future. And well, Sandra, I hope you enjoyed the webinar.
Of course, thank you so much.
Awesome, and I'm really happy to see that Corey made it as well. It's great to see Corey joining us. We had a great chat at the end of last week with Alejandro. So thank you for making it, Corey. And Anja, great to see you as well. Hope everything's well in your part of the world. And yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Diego. Bye.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diego.
See you soon.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao.